Hello indie game fans! October 2019 was chock full of fantastic indie games, so much so that I had a tough time paring down the list, but we shall start with MISTOVER, anime Darkest Dungeon crossed with Action Odyssey, also known as Waifu Dungeon. Between the art style, combat zoom-ins and even the design of your home base, the inspiration certainly shows through, but what differs is the tile-based dungeon exploration. There are 8 character classes ranging from Paladin, Werewolf, Witch and more, with some awesome character designs and emotions conveyed. Combat is suitably strategic, with the Darkest Dungeon type of turn-based combat and strategy with procedurally generated levels as per roguelike design. There are some complaints with regards to the unevenness of the difficulty and the RNG involved, but as a fan of its inspiration, this one appealed to me. A Metroidvania set in an underwater city filled with eldritch horrors perfectly describes OUTBUDDIES, as you play as an explorer trapped in the sunken city with a simple goal of trying to escape. Your robotic buddy unit adds in some abilities like telekinesis, which adds in puzzle elements, but the controls did feel just a little bit off to me. Pretty cool art style though, and I would consider this to be a deep cut for the genre. A straight up no-brainer for October is Indivisible, the beautiful Metroidvania with a cast of interesting characters, awesome art and a unique combat system drawn from Valkyrie Profile, a game released almost 19 years ago. Play as a young girl, Archana, on a quest for revenge after her village was burned to the ground. It is visually stunning, from character and enemy designs to the world and towns themselves. Combat is heavily combo based, making you multitask and chain the attacks of all 4 party members together. Can be just a little bit overwhelming, but once you wrap your head around the concept, it really is pretty good. I reviewed the heavy metal action platformer Valfaris on the channel, so for more of my thoughts, search for that video. This is an all-action, all-the-time platformer with really violent feeling feedback in terms of visuals, sound design and overall feel. Absolutely fantastic pixel art with a nice variety of biomes, enemies and weapons, and a very interesting risk-reward system. If you are in for a trip, Manifold Garden is certainly an experience. A first-person puzzle game where you explore infinite geometric locations in an almost MC Escher style of impossible architecture, this game is so beautiful and really is a treat for the eyes. The main puzzle mechanic is very simple, just find a block and place it on the corresponding spot in order to open a door to the next area. But you are also able to change gravity and walk on walls, so to speak, with some cleverly designed puzzles using multiple blocks and multiple planes of gravity. However, one of the more interesting design concepts in this game is the usage of infinity, where falling off a platform will eventually result in you landing back on that same platform with some directional inputs of course, and this led to, again, very clever puzzles and very fascinating architecture. It is all geometry and shapes, but shows, essentially, how beautiful math can be. Just a quick note, if you are new here and enjoyed the video so far, be sure to subscribe and check out the Discord channel while you are at it. Here's to more indie gaming coverage, so back to the video.
What do you want?
2 dead orphans.
Afterparty has been described as a hell of a good time, quite literally, as you play as a pair of best friends recently deceased and finding themselves in hell. Being from the developer of Oxenfree, this is a narrative-focused game where you walk and talk quite a bit. But this interpretation of hell itself is very appropriate for the game, being loud and garish and full of parties and bars. different drinks will affect the dialogue choices for our characters, and the voice acting and takes on characters such as Satan and Beelzebub are worth checking out.
I'm just saying, you should pace yourself.
Pigman but murder is basically how sea salt can be described. Control the forces of Dagon as they destroy humanity in an act of vengeance, since the townspeople made a pact with the Old One but refuses to cough up their end of the bargain, which is the sacrifice of the leader of the church. Naturally, all manner of eldritch monstrosities emerge from the sea, from the numerous but weak swarm, cultists who fire powerful projectiles but have very low health, and even a hulking, almost swamp thing-like creature. As in Pigman, your horde is controlled as one unit, and having to avoid devastating attacks from bosses is one of the key skills to have. The constant unlocks of new characters will keep you going, and of course, awesome pixel art. Platonic Games scores yet again with Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, 2.5D platformer that harkens back to Donkey Kong Country, as the first game did with Banjo-Kazooie. Being made up of former Rare developers, the pedigree and skill set will be there, and while the first was a little mixed in reception, this one certainly has been a lot better. Take on the impossible lair of the main villain, capital B, a bee who looks like Gru from Despicable Me, which is an insanely difficult platforming level that is available right from the start of the game. However, as you explore the world, you find members of Queen Phoebe's Royal Battalion, which acts as additional hits, so an interesting gameplay structure. What is most wonderful about this game is the overworld, which doubles as both a level select structure, but is also pretty fun to explore since it hides so many secrets of its own. Environmental interactions on the overworld, such as diverting a river, will affect the 2.5D platforming level as well, flooding pits and areas in this example, leading to alternative platforming challenges altogether. It is cartoony and so very charming, and will be great for both people who are looking to capture that nostalgia from their youth, and even to introduce a whole new generation to the genre. Disco Elysium is perhaps the runaway success of the month, getting so much mainstream coverage and discussion. A narrative-focused RPG where you play as a detective who got so blackout drunk that you forgot who you are. This manages to capture what so many people love about tabletop role-playing games, where it is not just about combat, damage, min-maxing your stats and saving the world, but about really role-playing as a character, thinking what this character would do in every situation. The most interesting part of this is that you can equip thoughts from your thought cabinet, so ideas like inexplicable feminist agenda or hardcore aesthetics can be used, and as you mull over these thoughts, they can strengthen and be internalized, giving both benefits and drawbacks, and these, of course, affect how you interact with other people in the world. So much variety and so many ways that you can build your character, really having a very different take on the RPG genre than anything else out there in the market. It is very text heavy though, and not the same kind of shooty bang bang fun found in almost every other game, so fair warning here, but certainly recommended for you to at least give it a shot.
And the greatest detective the world has ever seen.
If you love both Shovel Knight and Metroidvanias, then do I have something of interest to you? Cathedral is just as described, an old school inspired action platformer where you play as an amnesiac knight, waking up in a giant cathedral with no recollection of how you got there, and must find your way home by exploring this mysterious world and uncovering its mysteries. Along the way are keys to find, enemies to kill, loot to grab, bosses to fight, upgrades to get, and a whole world to explore. Ability unlocks, backtracking and secret hidden areas are key features, and it just controls superbly and feels great to play. A standout example of why I love indie games, this is from a small team in Sweden with collaborators in the Netherlands, and for such a well-made, enjoyable game to appear out of nowhere without the press coverage that it deserves is a real shame, so here I go, hopefully giving it a little push with the #1 spot of the month. For more of the best indie games, do check out the previous video or click on the recommended playlist, and I will see you after the jump.